Did George Russell really try to get Max Verstappen banned? That's the question everyone's been asking since the chaos unfolded behind the safety car in Canada. It wasn't just about who crossed the line first. It was about mind games, protests, missed flights, and a potential race ban that could flip the championship on its head. Let's get straight into the controversy that has shaken up the 2025 Formula One season. The drama kicked off on lap 67 of the Canadian Grand Prix. Lando Norris had just rear-ended his McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri on the pit straight. That crash brought out the safety car with just a few laps to go. At the front of the pack, George Russell in P1, Max Verstappen right behind him in P2. Then came the moment that sparked a week-long firestorm. As the field made its way down the back straight toward the final chicane, Russell suddenly hit the brakes, hard. Verstappen, caught off guard, ended up sailing past the Mercedes. Now, overtaking under safety car conditions is strictly forbidden. Verstappen immediately got on the radio and told his engineer Jean-Pierre Lambiase. George just suddenly aggressively braked. Lambiase replied calmly, "Understood, thank you, we will check for any erratic driving." But on the other side, Russell had already taken to his own team radio. He reported, "Verstappen just overtook me under the safety car." And just like that, the fuse was lit. A few hours after the race ended with Russell taking victory and Verstappen second, Red Bull formally lodged two separate protests with the FIA stewards. One for what they called Russell's erratic driving. The second for what they saw as a clear breach of the regulation requiring drivers to remain within 10 car lengths of the safety car. Red Bull boss Christian Horner summed up their position. It's relating to the erratic driving behind the safety car, where George very heavily braked, obviously looking at his mirror for Max. He added, and the second is very clearly the distance that was left behind the safety car that was well in excess. It was 3 times in excess of the permitted distance. To back up their case, Red Bull submitted telemetry showing throttle and brake inputs from both drivers. They also highlighted onboard footage of Russell glancing in his right side mirror just before braking, which they argued was evidence of deliberate provocation. The implication? That Russell saw Verstappen's position, braked sharply to bait him into an illegal overtake, and then immediately reported it over the radio, hoping to earn Verstappen a penalty. And this wasn't just about race positions. Verstappen went into Canada with 11 penalty points on his super license. One more, and he'd face an automatic race ban. That raised the stakes massively. But Mercedes fired back with a robust defense. Russell explained that braking under the safety car is standard practice to keep tire and brake temperatures in the right window. He claimed he was closing in on the actual safety car ahead, and had even gestured with his hand, caught on in-car video, for it to speed up. He then braked for 2 reasons: to maintain a safe distance, and to keep his tires and brakes warm. Crucially, he said he looked in his mirrors to make sure Verstappen wasn't directly behind him before hitting the brakes. The data showed he applied 30 psi of brake pressure, low by F1 standards. In other words, not dangerous, not erratic. Russell also said his radio message wasn't some calculated trap, it was just a factual observation. Verstappen had overtaken him. That's it. Mercedes sporting director Ron Meadows and trackside engineering director Andrew Shovlin supported their driver fully. They didn't contact race control, they didn't file any complaint. Verstappen had returned the position quickly, and as far as Mercedes was concerned, it was a non-issue. They even provided telemetry showing that Verstappen had also braked in the same part of the circuit under previous laps behind the safety car. The FIA agreed. After a lengthy hearing that kept both teams in the paddock well into the evening, the stewards rejected both of Red Bull's protests. FIA sporting director Tim Malyon stated that periodic braking during safety car deployments is expected and accepted. He said that the 10-car length rule is applied with some tolerance because of that braking and acceleration cycle. In his words, the incident had been observed by the race control team and assessed to not warrant being reported to the stewards. The stewards concluded that Russell's braking was not erratic, that his radio message did not amount to unsportsmanlike conduct, and that Red Bull's protest was not founded. Red Bull also had to forfeit their €2,000 protest deposit. Russell kept his victory, his first of the season and 4th of his career. But the drama didn't end there. Toto Wolff was furious at the entire protest. Speaking from the F1 movie premiere in New York, the Mercedes boss said, "It's so petty and so small, they come up with weird clauses, it's just embarrassing. You race, you win, and you lose on track. That was a fair victory for us, like so many they had in the past." Wolff also revealed how the protest caused logistical chaos for his team. Chauvelin and Ron Meadows both missed their flight, which was obviously a problem for everyone, but now it's behind us and we can look forward. Christian Horner, for his part, had no regrets. It's a team's right to do so. We saw something we didn't think was quite right. Absolutely no regrets. But it's not just Horner and Wolff who had opinions. Former Red Bull driver Richard Dornbos weighed in on the Pit the Talk podcast, calling the whole incident childish. He said, "Straight away on the radio like football players asking for a yellow card, but that is how the sport unfortunately is now." Dornbos added, "You have guys that you don't get on with. You don't need to get on with everybody. They share a jet sometimes, but he won't share a jet with George." Formula E driver Sam Bird was even more blunt. Speaking on the Checkered Flag podcast, he said, "Russell braked on a straight line when Verstappen was right beside him. If I'm being very cynical, I would say he did this deliberately because according to the rules you cannot overtake behind the safety car." Red Bull's own sim and development driver Rudy Van Buren echoed the same view. In an interview with Viaplay, he said, "Talking about trying to throw someone under the bus. George is looking in his right mirror and Max is driving alongside. As soon as he thinks, if I brake now, Max will pass me, he does it." There's another layer to all this. Context. This wasn't an isolated incident. At the previous race in Spain, Verstappen and Russell had already clashed, literally. Verstappen backed off into turn 5, then sped up and blocked Russell from turning in, resulting in contact. Verstappen got a 10-second penalty and 3 points on his license for that. That's what brought his total to 11. Russell called it very deliberate. Verstappen admitted it was not right but never apologized. So by the time they reached Canada, tensions were already sky high. And Horner later revealed Red Bull had anticipated potential mind games even before the race started. "It's something that we raised after the driver's briefing with the race director just so that they were mindful of it as well," he said, "because it's clear that kind of stuff goes on." He added, "Max, I thought he's been squeaky clean all weekend and drove a very good race." But despite the steward's verdict, many are still questioning Russell's intentions. The fact that he immediately reported Verstappen's overtake, knowing how close Max was to a ban, raised plenty of eyebrows. And with 11 penalty points still on Verstappen's license, the threat of a race ban still looms. If he gets even one more before the Austrian Grand Prix, he's out for a race. Meanwhile, Russell's win in Canada pushed him up in the championship standings. Verstappen remains third, Russell is now fourth, just 19 points behind. And both are chasing Oscar Piastri, who leads the championship with a 44-point gap over Max. What's more, this was Red Bull's third protest against Russell this season. The first came in Miami, where they alleged he hadn't slowed enough under yellow flags. That one was also thrown out. Then came 2 more in Canada, both denied. To put that in perspective, F1 rarely sees this many protests over an entire season, let alone by round 10. Even during the dramatic 2021 title fight, protests didn't start until the final race. So now the question is, are we entering a new era of post-race politics? Will gamesmanship and radio tactics become just as important as tire strategy? As the rivalry between Verstappen and Russell continues to escalate, every move, every brake tap, and every radio call is going to be scrutinized. This isn't just about racing anymore. It's about perception, reputation, and in Max's case, survival.